Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com.
Welcome in to Fantasy Sports Daily, where we open with this simple question. Do you remember about 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 weeks ago, when Dallas, Philadelphia, and Miami were Super Bowl contenders? Do you remember that moment? Because, Ray Flowers, it seems like ages ago that those three teams were considered Super Bowl contenders, and here we are, 1 week down in the playoffs, and all three of them have had their season come to an end.
It's been a wild year, and I guess it always is in the NFL. I think we tend to get lulled into a sense of, well, you know, these are just the three best teams, and that's how it's going to be. And we were reminded this year that's just not how it works. The any given Sunday line, the whole thing. But we saw teams blast out to incredible starts this year, including the Eagles, who we'll talk about, who just fell on their face. And that to me, like you said, three teams like that to just disappear the way it has, that might be historic, Kyle. It was a really rough week for the favorites.
Well, and for me, Ray, it goes down as surprising to see those storylines kind of alter over 2 months' time. The shocker to me, because, Ray, if you'd asked me in week 1, or you asked me in week 4, or 8, or 12, or 15, or week 18, or even if you asked me 2 days ago, Ray, I would have said, whoever the hell wins the NFC South, it's one and done. Whoever it is. And Ray, here we are. The Dolphins, the Cowboys, and the Eagles are out, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still alive. What the hell do we know anymore? The NFC South must have been better than we ever thought.
What we know is that the Niners and the Ravens better be pretty scared because the history's coming for them next, Kyle.
We shall see. Good to have you with us here on FSD. Of course, we come at you each and every weekday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, where we talk football, we talk basketball. We're going to do that with Justin Fensterman. And, of course, we talk baseball. Reminder, Ray's Draft Guide, the Fantasy Guru Draft Guide, Ray's Draft Guide, is out and available. I know there are other people, but Ray's Draft Guide is out. It's available. We talked about this yesterday. Ray, there it is. You get the cover boys, the cruise boys, you get all these rankings, you get rookies, you get research articles, you get a look back, you get a look forward. Oh, and also when you buy this thing, Ray, you get the entire season of 2024. You do.
You get the entire season, the coverage all year long from now through the World Series, all the articles, access to Discord. There's also the added bonus of the first of every month, obviously May 1st, June, July, August, September. I redo the entire rankings as well. So all 600 players get redone. That way you know where your guys stand, you know, if you should be making trades, what have you. It's all available now, again, from now through the end of the season over at fantasyguru.com. Use that promo code FSD20. Get you that 20% discount as well, Kyle.
We will have much more on the draft guide coming up. Our plan is to hopefully every day, time permitting, kind of spotlight one of the articles in there. Give you a tease, give you a taste of what Ray's talking about. And we will do that a bit later in the show. But let's hit you with the rundown for today's show. Of course, we were talking about the action that went down on Monday, where honestly, a bit of a surprise, I think. I mean, both games were kind of blowouts. I don't even know if kind of should be used. They were blowouts. Pittsburgh perhaps was not blown out, but you never felt that they were really in that game against Buffalo. The Tampa-Philly game was a true blowout, and Baker Mayfield had his moment, maybe his best moment since being drafted into the NFL. You can say that. And oh yeah, he's due to be a free agent at the end of the season. Now that we know, we can give you the week 2 playoff matchups. So we'll set you up for your Saturday and Sunday. We talked a lot last week about Ray and I being in a one and done fantasy playoff league. We'll tell you how week 1 went and where we stand getting set for week 2. Got some news and notes, injury news, coaching news, those kind of things. And then we're going to talk some basketball with our buddy Justin Fensterman. We do that every Tuesday on the show, and we will get the latest from him. I don't know about where Justin's at, but literally where I'm at, Ray, it's 3 degrees. I do not show up in a tank top. I'm assuming it's pretty cold where Justin is at. I'm going to see if he's going to be tough enough to show up with a tank top for today's visit again.
I have a behind the scenes look, behind the curtain, pull it back. He showered this morning. So whatever he's wearing, it's
behind the scenes look, right?
Yeah, I know. Don't pull that curtain back. But he's showered, so he's ready to go. He did remember say that he was going to wait and to display the guns until he'd worked out a little bit more. So he may not be wearing a tank top today. We'll see.
We shall see. We shall see. Let's get into the Monday of wild card action, where we were surprisingly gifted 2 games. We had Buffalo and Pittsburgh delayed from Sunday. They, of course, played. It was still pretty snowy, but I was disappointed. I was expecting snow to be falling during the game and didn't really get that. So, woe is me. I also thought Pittsburgh had a chance here. Dumb as me. Ray, they never got the running game going. They just didn't. It didn't work. I was surprised it didn't work. For anybody who I was thinking if I were in DFS, Ray, I would have double dipped on Warren and Harris and really rode those two. I would have failed miserably. So I missed on that. And honestly, what's kind of weird about this game, Ray, is Josh Allen had a super, super effort. His totals are great. Mm-hmm. And then other than that, everything was kind of blah. Even the guys who got touchdowns, they had 30 yards receiving or 40 yards receiving. Like Stephon Diggs had 7 catches, but it was 52 yards and no touchdown. So this was like Josh Allen and then a bunch of just things happening, but nobody else really took off in this game yesterday.
Yeah, jokingly yesterday I said a 45% target share for Stephon Diggs, and then I dropped it down to 30% when pressed. It was exactly 30%. The team and this, the Bills are playing great football. They're winning these games. They're controlling games. We've seen this for a month and a half now. The interesting thing is a lot of it has just been Josh Allen. And I think, again, we talked about this earlier, a couple of weeks ago when we were having all these discussions, is Lamar Jackson the MVP? I'm telling you, the most important guy in football is Josh Allen, period. Okay? Now, should he win the MVP, leading the league in turnovers? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you take him away from this Bills team and it's over because it's all Josh Allen. And it's remarkable that they can consistently beat good teams, consistently put up points and do all these things where you look at the box scores, you're saying, Kyle, and maybe there's one guy besides Allen that does it. But this guy does everything, and I think it was no more obvious than on the long touchdown run where he just did it. I mean, it was Steve Young-esque. He just did it. He took the team and said, I'm going in this end zone. Here I go. You can't catch me. You can't tackle me. And they won a football game.
Yeah, and at that point, it was 21-0, and it looked for all intents and purposes like it was going to end up 45-7. Mm-hmm. So I give credit, Ray, to the Steelers for fighting back and kind of putting up their dukes, if you will. Mason Rudolph, this game, he throws 39 passes. That gives you an indication of how this game went for the Steelers because, honestly, other QBs, you have no problem throwing 39 passes. The Steelers have no interest in Mason Rudolph throwing the ball 39 times. I mean, they want 25 passes. And I mentioned the running attack never get going. I mean, Harris and Warren Ray combining for 20 carries and what they get to 75 yards. I mean, just nothing there. So I will give credit to the Bills defense. That played well. I felt the Steelers defense kind of figured out their footing. But right now, you're 100% right. It is all Allen. And, Diggs and Cook are there, and Kincaid is there. But it's like you look at this game this weekend against Kansas City. That's going to be a fun one, Kansas City coming to Buffalo. But like if you're looking at DFS or you're looking at one and done, it's really hard to think about anybody but Josh Allen for the Bills right now. I mean, again, you're probably going to have to use a guy or two, but it used to always be, man, you could count on Diggs for 90 and a touchdown. And that is long gone. That is still one of the craziest things, Ray. Like he's involved, he's getting targets, but the numbers have just absolutely eroded for Stephon Diggs. And it's now going on 10 weeks. It's a really significant fall from his usual standards.
Yeah. And it's, there's been whispers of strife away from the field. We've seen outward, stuff from Diggs too. There's been whispers about injury. I don't really see that watching him, run routes and cut. So I'm not really seeing that. I think part of the problem has become, and they talked about it on the broadcast last night, it's that, you look at this team as a defensive opponent and what do? Who's beating you as a pass catcher? Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis wasn't even on the field. Even when he's on the field, is he on the field? Right? I mean, Knox is a good red zone threat, but he doesn't do anything between the 20s. Shakir made a great move on the touchdown, broke the grasp of Minka Fitzpatrick, got in the end zone, but he's not a volume guy. Hardy, come on. So it's Diggs and Kincaid, and most teams don't worry too much about a tight end catching 5 or 6 passes for 70 yards. They'll live with that. So defenses just focus on Diggs, and they don't have a secondary option to take the defensive attention away from Diggs. And to Josh Allen's credit, the last couple of times out, he's seemingly understood that, right? Instead of trying to force the ball and let's turn the ball over and let's just pull back, take what the defense gives us, and win a football game.
As for the Steelers, I think it's a bit of a surprise they got to this point. Just kind of getting to the playoffs is a pretty big accomplishment because I don't think anyone considered them a playoff contender coming into the year. I guess things broke right enough to where they got the 10 victories. But you look at this, Ray, the quarterback issue is totally unsettled. Like moving forward, and the receivers are hard to get fired up about as long as the quarterback's an issue. And Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, that's probably still going to be a thing next season. I think it's fascinating to see what they do under center. And I know there was a lot of discussion after the game, and we saw the video with Mike Tomlin kind of just walking away from the podium after being asked about his contract. And what was it, 17, 18 years? It's amazing. It's the Steelers. It's how they run things. I wonder if there's any chance he moves on. And if he were to do that, Ray, I think it would be because he's looking at the quarterback situation and saying, I don't feel like starting over again and resetting the clock on another 2 or 3 years. Maybe he's come to the realization if he leaves that Kenny Pickett just can't be the answer, and they got to make some moves going into the offseason.
Yeah, we talk about this with players all the time, and it is fair to bring it up with coaches. I mean, Mike Tomlin, for all you Steeler fans that want to fire him, you're ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's a great coach.
Ray, I run into Steeler fans here, because they're all over the country, and nobody likes the guy. They kind of do, but they complain about him way more than you would ever expect.
Yeah. All they do is win all the time, no matter who is there. It's shocking. There are so many crappy organizations in football to think that anyone has a problem with this guy because they're not winning Super Bowls every 3 years. That's just not how it works, Dallas. That's just how it works. Okay. Yeah. So, but I think that if you are him, right, and you're sitting there and you're reading the press and you're seeing things and people don't like you, it's like, screw you guys, I'm out. Yeah, I'm going to go coach a team that's got a chance to win. I don't want to go through this. I don't want to pull a team on my back to 9 or 10 victories and sneak into the playoffs over here. Let's win some games here. So that organization, they, like we said before, and like you said there, they need a quarterback. I mean, got to remember too, yesterday, TJ Watt wasn't in that game. And, he's arguably the best defensive or most important defensive player in football, kind of the Josh Allen of defense. That could have changed the complexion of the game too. So you might get what you wish for, Steeler fans. I don't know why you're wishing for it, but I'd love to have Tomlin the coach of my team if I had some uncertainty under that position.
And in closing, George Pickens had some moments yesterday. He's a talent. I get it. He's also got things that can blow up at any point in the middle of a game, and he gets benched. Like, you just don't know with him. Deontay Johnson is not exciting. We mentioned the backfield. Like, next year, Ray, it's going to be hard I'll have to hold my nose if I'm drafting a Steelers player, I think, unless something truly changes under center.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, and you saw this especially on that one catch that Pickens made across the middle where he jumped up and twisted in the air and bent backwards. Mm-hmm. Dude is a ball. He is a baller. He is a baller, and he is about this close away from blowing up like a bomb. He's chucking his helmet on the sidelines. He's pissed off all the time. You're the one that dropped the ball, dude. You're the one that did the fumble. No one did that to you. He's a tremendous talent, but he's probably grown frustrated that for quarters, he just doesn't even get the football. He's got crappy quarterback play. They bring a quarterback in, this all changes. If they go with Retread City, if Gardner Minshew's brought in, if they keep these guys around, it could blow up next year for the Steelers. I agree.
Bills advance another home game for them. They will get Kansas City. Again, we'll run you through the schedule in a bit. Second game last night, Ray, this was the surprise to me. And hey, going in, it wouldn't have stunned me if Tampa won. Things had set up pretty roughly for the Eagles with A.J. Brown being out, and who knows what the true health is on Jalen Hurts, and you're kind of forcing Devonta Smith back out there. But, Ray, to see it go down the way it did, 32-9, that leaves you scratching your head. And before we get to the negativity of the Eagles, which I guess the Cowboys only have to deal with a day of people yelling about them, because now today we get to yell about the Eagles. But Ray, with the Bucks, hey, I don't know. I'm not going to apologize to Baker Mayfield, right? But to see Baker Mayfield have a good season and then a great playoff game is something I would have never bet on. And I always love to rewind the clock at this point. Back in August, we were wondering who's going to be the QB, Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. And there were questions, would the Bucs even win 4 or 5 games? And now they're into the second round of the playoffs, and they just beat the Eagles. Like this is stunning what they pulled off. And it's kind of like the Bills, Ray. You look at this box score, and again, 32 points. The Bills had 31. Baker Mayfield had a game. And then after that, I guess Cade Otton. But like this was a game where they scored 30 plus without Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. And even with Rachaad White, not really doing a whole lot in this game for the Bucs.
Yeah, I think that Evans and Otton officially dropped 4 passes. It might have been 5. Okay. Anyone that watched that game, Baker Mayfield was on point. He was throwing balls in guys' hands, and they were just dropping the ball in the first half. Just Otton right in his hand. Evans right in his hand, just dropping footballs. And I thought, well, this going to be a problem, right? You can't make mistakes against the Eagles and still, well, there it didn't matter, right? So like you said, the Bucs won this game. I think the real issue they have moving forward is Mike Evans is going to be a free agent. Godwin is a supporting piece. He's not a lead guy. You mentioned last night, Rachaad White crapped the bed partly because he wasn't used as a pass catcher because they didn't need him.
One catch, Ray, he has not been – that's the lowest total of the year. Yeah. And he's got a few games with 2, but he's a guy you expect to get 5-6 catches out of. He had 1 last night.
We'll talk about our one-and-done teams later. Who had him in their lineup yesterday? So they don't run the football. The point was they don't run the football effectively. They need to work on that aspect of the game, right? So you're potentially losing your wide receiver 1. You don't run the ball effectively. You're going to have to pay Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, this is as good as it gets. You better enjoy it because if Baker Mayfield's sticking around, you're winning 8 games every year. That's just how it is. The team doesn't have the talent around
Mayfield. Let me ask
you,
Ray. Yesterday we were talking about Tua and kind of the what's the future in Miami. Obviously, a big one this whole year has been Justin Fields. This Baker Mayfield thing, like he's a legit free agent. Tua and Fields are under contract, and teams can come back. But like, what do you do if you're Tampa? Like, if you say, hey, do we give Mike Evans 3 more years, or do we give 6 years to Baker Mayfield? It's again, you find that QB with a pulse, and I guess we have to say Baker Mayfield has a pulse. Do you really let him walk? And they don't have a high draft pick. They're kind of in a salary cap crunch. That's another really difficult decision as you look into the offseason for Tampa.
Well, he's not getting $40 million, right? It's not going to go bananas. I don't think anyone's going to get, and I meant it per year. It's not going crazy. I mean, if Baker Mayfield goes out in the next game and he throws for 112 yards and 4 picks, really easy to say we're moving on. If he goes out and plays another good football game, even if they lose, he goes out and plays a good football game, how do you tell your fan base, yeah, we're going on from that, we're bringing Gardner Minshew in? Like, how do you – and so it really it'll come down to negotiations. And, does Baker say, thanks for giving me a job? I'll give you a little bit of a discount. Does he say, thanks for giving me a job? Now I want to get paid. What can the organization pay? What are they willing? He will be a fascinating case because the numbers say he should get paid. This run toward the end of the season here, if it keeps – remember, though, last week against the Panthers, he was horrible. And the offense was horrible. And I think that's partly because he's beat up physically. But he has exceeded all expectations, and it's going to be a hard sell to the fans as well as the team to say we're not bringing this guy back.
Philadelphia, probably the bigger storyline coming out of this one. That's kind of how the news cycle works. Who are you pissed off at? That would be Philadelphia, Ray. And you talk about collapses. This is one people will remember for a long time. And sure, there are injuries, and A.J. Brown last night, but the fact this offense just collapsed and fell apart and didn't seem to have any answers. Tampa is not much of a defense. Okay. So let's not get carried away thinking that they were up against a high flying, high charging defense. They've had a few good games this year, but nothing where you came into this and said, oh yeah, they're going to keep the Eagles to 10 points or fewer. Nobody was saying that. And Ray, it's wild to me how the discussion had changed because it was, you've got one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. You have an insanely great coaching staff who's really innovative with their play calling. Look at the steal you've got from DeAndre Swift. Look at how awesome your defensive line is. The Eagles are this great franchise all of a sudden. And now, Ray, I click on things today, and here's the running storyline. The coaching staff needs to be changed. Sirianni isn't as good as we thought. Jalen Hurts is a guy that is limited when it comes to being a QB, and the team is now old. The roster is old. These guys, and all of that, Ray, is true. You'll see it everywhere. And I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong. And heck, when the Eagles are flying high, we all said, oh, wow, what a great team. Mm-hmm. But it's just a reminder. We constantly forget this when we celebrate teams, celebrate players, and we just think, oh, they've got it figured out. They sure as hell don't. Okay? Detroit. Like right now, Ray, they're the toast of town. Mm-hmm. The Ravens are the toast of town. And we think, oh, there's no way. They're so good. They're so strong. And Philadelphia is an absolute example, Ray. It feels like after last night's loss, like we're walking around, you almost feel like they're going to go through a rebuild this year. Yeah. That's what it feels like to read things. Like people are screaming that they got to blow things outside of Jalen Hurts, blow it up. A.J. Brown's a disgruntled receiver. Move him out of here. It's crazy how quickly the opinions flip-flop here with a losing streak like they had.
Yeah, and Adam Schefter reported that Jason Kelce, their center, is going to retire. Mm-hmm. And there goes the tush push. So they're not going to have the success with him without him there next year. They were 10-1. And I sat here talking to you and said, boy, this team, man, they're great. And they were at the time. And everyone was saying it. And when you go from being great to a team that is lost, and let's face it, they're lost. And, they were commenting on the broadcast last night, right? It's like, well, we hate to be a broken record here, but here's a missed tackle. Here's a missed tackle. Here's a missed tackle. Here. They got rolled by the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Tampa Bay Bucks, who scored 9 points and looked hideous against Carolina Panthers the week before, rolled them, controlled the game from start to finish. And, everything when there's no adversity, and everyone has adversity, but when there's no real adversity, you don't have 4 guys down with injury or not, everyone looks great. And mm-hmm. I think a lot of Eagles fans got, they bought that we have the greatest coaching staff of all time. We have the greatest players of all time. You take a guy here on defense, here this linebacker's out, this guy on the D-line, take wide receiver away, and this is what the Niners were dealing with when the Eagles beat them last year. Like, come on, this is, so it's wild. In my opinion, don't need massive changes, but when you end a season the way they did, their change is coming.
It's wild with Hurts, Ray, and we did talk about this in late October into November, and then would bring it up sporadically. I do feel like the knee, I can't remember what game. Was it the Buffalo game? Or I think the Buffalo game was when he got bent over backwards. You're like, oh my God, is he really going to stay out there? And he did, and he obviously played the rest of the season. But there was, a knee injury earlier in the year. And Ray, you can see it in the rushing totals. In 9 of the first 11 games, he had at least 9 rushing attempts. And in 7 of the first 11 games, he was over double digits. I mean, there are games here, 14, 15, 10, 12, 10, 12, 11. I mean, it's all over the place. And then, Ray, if you look in the last, 7 weeks, he had 1 game of 9 rushing attempts. Last night, 1. And Ray, I look at that and knowing that there was something going on with the knee, I think, and it's hard to believe that would crater an offense. Like, he was still out there and he was still throwing the football and touchdowns were okay. I mean, there's not huge games here, but he was still out there. But I just wonder if, when you got to the point where Jalen Hurts maybe couldn't push it as a runner, you couldn't count on that for him to be a mobile, moving quarterback. Did that really just pull the plug on the entire Eagles offense?
I think that, his ability with his legs and his arm is unique, right? There's only a couple of quarterbacks in football that can do things like he does. So having him limited in any aspect does obviously change what you can do because he's the X factor. Like, right? You can plan everything out. Everything goes wrong. Here he goes, right? A lot of quarterbacks, everything goes wrong. They get sacked. I mean, they can't do that. I think it is fair to point out that A.J. Brown was hurt late. Devonta Smith missed some time. Dallas Goedert obviously missed some time. So when you start talking about pulling away elite weapons from an offense, that's going to hurt an offense. But I do think that, we talked about this. Jeff Mans pointed out the mechanics of Hurts was off. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about play calling with this team. Right. I mentioned the 3 main guys, going down with injury, missing some time. I think there's a lot of everything just cracked, like cracks in the foundation. Everything just cracked. And unfortunately, there was no way that they didn't have the glue to put it back together in time. And, when you can lose, you can end the season with the loss and it's like, all right, we lost, damn it. They ended the season with loss. They ended the season losing. And that's really hard to overcome because what do you do now? You're just sitting there and the natural human reaction is we need to do something because this was just crap for a month and a half.
Yeah, and very quiet last night. They went quietly into the offseason, much like Dallas. But as Ray noted, this was not just a one and done. Oh, my gosh, can you believe this was 7 weeks of blah. And, we compare and contrast them to the Steelers, Ray. People are still going to be in on Philly. Maybe not as highly, but, if A.J. Brown sticks around, he's probably a wide receiver 1, Devonta Smith a wide receiver 2, Jalen Hurts a top 5, top 6 quarterback. I would think DeAndre Swift, Ray, is that an RB2? Well, probably an RB2, right?
I think it's an RB2, but I think it will be very interesting how prognosticators view the offense with the loss of Jason Kelce, because a lot of people basically have said the tush push works because of him. So he was retired. Does that mean that the 15 touchdowns that we got on the ground from our quarterback now becomes 6 or 7 or 8 or 9? And now the 5 touchdowns from Swift becomes 8 or 10. So that'll be interesting, but I think running back 2 is fair.
Okay. That sets us up now for the upcoming weekend, the divisional round. 2 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So just real quickly, and we'll dig into this a lot more later in the week, but we got Houston at Baltimore to get things rolling. 4:30 is the kickoff on Saturday. Fun one on Saturday night, Green Bay at San Francisco, 8:15 is the start time there. And then, of course, we do it again on Sunday, Tampa and Detroit. Who saw that one coming? Ray, has that matchup ever been cool? Like, even in the history of the 2 franchises? Because Tampa and Detroit, they used to play in the, God, why is the name escaping me? The NFC, not the North. It was, what they call it? Was it the North?
I'm drawing a blank too.
Yeah, what the old name, maybe it was the whatever it was. But Ray, they were always kind of joker franchises. They were never good. And even when Tampa was good, Detroit wasn't on those rare occasions. And now they're in different divisions and in different divisions at least. So they don't meet as often. But Ray, I remember being a kid and it was like, you'd have these clashing colors of the ugly creamsicle of the Bucks. And then at the time, the Lions kind of had a very beat down baby blue look. It wasn't like something that popped on the screen. And so now, Ray, this is like the first time I can really remember this game mattering when these 2 teams meet in the second round of the playoffs.
The defunct NFC Central, Kyle.
Central, okay, it was the Central.
What a dumb name.
It had Chicago, it had Detroit, it had Green Bay, and it had Tampa for some reason.
Yeah, well, the Atlanta Braves used to be in the NL West. Yeah. You never know. By the way, I hate those creamsicle uniforms. I know people love them. I hate them. But yeah, this is not a storied matchup in the history of the NFL. It's got all kinds of storylines now.
Yeah, they've played a lot over the history. It's just never mattered.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be, we'll go into the game, of course, with the Lions being the favorites, and we'll get all the stories again. But I mean, I think it's good too. As much as the NFL wants, and the world always says, "Oh, well, Dallas is out, no one's watching." Yeah. Everyone's watching football games in the playoffs. It doesn't matter who's playing. It doesn't matter for the NFL, and it's good for the league. It's good for the sport to have some diversity there, and they've done obviously a very good job of it since the Patriots. Right, we're getting a little bit of mix and match here, and it's kind of good to see some new blood involved, at least in my opinion.
So it's going to be 3:00 on Sunday, and then probably the most anticipated game is the finale on Sunday night, Kansas City at Buffalo, a 6:30 kickoff. As I believe this is right, Ray, the first time in the history of Patrick Mahomes he's going to have to go on the road in the playoffs.
How amazing is that?
Yeah, pretty amazing, but it really also speaks to how good he's been and how good the Chiefs have been.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ray, we're done with one and done for week 1. We talked about this a lot last week, kind of building team strategies. I love this. I think you enjoy it. How did week 1 go for you in the one and done league?
Matthew, well, I'm in multiple ones, but I chose the serious one. Is that the one you did, Kyle?
Yeah, the serious one.
Okay. So in that league, Matthew Stafford was really good. Aaron Jones was a superstar. Rachaad White was a total flameout. Kyren Williams, total flameout. Nico Collins was really good. Tyreek Hill was fine. Cooper Kupp, total flameout. David Njoku was good. Brett Maher was good. And then the Cleveland Browns defense got a minus. and they were flame out. So I had about 4 hits and 4 flame outs, Kyle. And overall, I had 143 points.
He smoked me, Ray. And I was below 120. And I had some of the same names. I had Stafford, I had Kyren Williams, I had Cooper Kupp, David Njoku. My issue here was I got nothing from my receivers. I had 4 starting receivers this week. And I got Amon-Ra St. Brown to 18. That was good. Mm-hmm. But nobody else even got to 10 points. That includes Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, and Cooper Kupp. Now, the beauty of this setup, and this is why I truly enjoy it, is I'm still alive. And I don't know what everybody used, Ray, and who they used and who they have left. I'm looking, let's see, who was the leader in this particular league? Dan Klaskins of Fantistics. And he had a massive week, Ray. Let's see, he used Pacheco, who wasn't massive, but let's see, he had Nico Collins like you did. Oh, he had Puka. Puka was the big lift for him. And he had Jake Ferguson. So you talk about
extremely, no offense to Dan, that's extremely fortunate. But yeah.
Well, yeah, it is, but he did it.
He did.
Well, here's the thing with tight ends this week, Ray. I remember, and I worked under the assumption Laporta wasn't going to play. Mm-hmm. So I looked at the list of tight ends in week 1, and the only 2 guys I could really consider were Njoku and Ferguson. As I saw it. I mean, I wasn't really interested in anybody else. Mm-hmm. I went the Njoku route. You went the Njoku route. But my number 2 was Ferguson's. And I get it. Nobody would ever call for 3 touchdowns. But I figure a lot of people actually maybe got that because the field was just a little thin. You want to save Kelsey and some of these other guys for later in the playoffs. You don't want to play Kelsey in -5-degree weather. So I think it was only like 2, maybe 3 tight ends. Kincaid, maybe people were looking at, but the weather was a factor there. So I'm guessing a lot of people had Ferguson.
It's interesting. Dan, like you said, had this huge week, 192 points, which is 50 points more than my team had. 40% of our team was the same. So it's like that. And that's how it's interesting in the playoffs, right? That you get that crossover there. But yeah, I think that and again, that's why we chose it. I think the smart move was to go with Njoku, right? Yeah. And again, he had 16 points. It's a perfectly solid game. Just Jake Ferguson decided to have the best game of his life with those 3 touchdowns.
Well, and here's the beauty as far as I didn't have a good week, admittedly. But the beauty of this one and done, Ray, is I have everyone from Houston available, everyone from Baltimore and San Francisco available, obviously. I didn't use a single Packer last week. I used Mike Evans from the Bucks, but that's it. Detroit, I'm a little thin because I did use both Montgomery and Gibbs as well as St. Brown.
Okay.
So about all I've got there is Laporta and Goff, which might be used this week. I might use both those guys. Kansas City, I didn't play anybody. And Buffalo, I didn't play anybody. So outside of Detroit, Ray, like 7 of these 8 teams, I'm still with loads of options to choose from.
Yeah, I think that in as we start to shrink this down, there might be a lot of similarity in the teams moving forward too, because we're losing big teams that we all expected. I don't think everyone expected, but Eagles, right? Certainly everyone expected the Cowboys to emerge. Yeah. So if you didn't use those guys in week 1, you don't have them available. And I think the majority of the field probably didn't, right? So it'll be interesting to see if we get the Ravens or the Niners knocked out, if they miraculously lose their first game here in the playoffs. I bet that's going to change a lot because I don't think many people are probably going to use either of those guys' players this week either, Kyle.
Yeah, it's like cool that I have Packers, but do I want to use them against the 49ers? Who knows? But last week, would you want to use them against the Cowboys? Well, probably not. They went for 48 points. So no issue going against those Cowboys. So that is where we stand on the one and done. Later in the week, Ray and I will kind of see where we're leaning as we get for those week 2 builds. We will tell you that Noah Brown will not be on Ray's one and done team. He won't be on mine either. He was actually placed on IR by the Houston Texans, so the season is over. Back injury for him, which is worrisome. Back injuries. I don't know if it's fair, but like Ray, when I see a knee injury, it's like, oh, he'll be back.
Right.
Foot injury, he'll be back. Shoulder, he'll be back. Back injury, it's like, well, he may be back, but is he really going to be ever right? And that's just one of those injuries that you can survive through. I don't know if it's ever great as an NFL player.
Well, I don't know if it's great. As I talk about my back issues all the time, It's like I have to stretch and do things, and all I do is sit in a chair. So yeah, if it's a true issue, not like just a pull muscle or something, he'll rehab as best you can. But back issues, that's tough. Once that starts going, it's hard to stop it.
One last thing on the football side, no coaching hirings, although there are tons of reports about interviews and request here, request there. Dan Quinn, his Cowboys got ousted. His defense did not look good against Green Bay, but he will have plenty of suitors. I think the number I saw was 4. Sounds like Bill Belichick, Ray, has interviewed with the Falcons. Mm-hmm. I guess he has every intention of sticking around. I mean, I look at this with, and again, I'm not wired this way, but if I'm Nick Saban, if I'm Bill Belichick, if I'm Pete Carroll, it's like, dude, I'm in my 70s. Can I enjoy my life? Maybe this is enjoyment to them, Ray, but gosh, I just wonder why you keep doing this. It's a real, I don't know if 24/7 is fair, but it's a 27 job probably for these guys.
Well, it's weird too, because you get the Cal Ripkens and the Barry Sanders. They play for the one organization. Obviously, Belichick has coached for more than one team, but he's so identified with the Patriots. Like, does he go to another organization and win 7 games for 2 years and then retires and no one remembers 30 years from now, or does he go and have that success? And it's not going to taint his legacy by any means, but there's so many greats that end up doing this where they go somewhere just for a year or two, and it usually kind of flames out, right?
Ray, I wonder, you say it wouldn't taint his legacy. I wonder if it would, if he goes to Atlanta and let's say in 2 years they win 8 games, 10 games, well under 500. And that'll be in effect like 3-4 straight losing seasons, all of them without Tom Brady. And people will say, well, it was awesome. They were great. They were a dynasty, but it wasn't so much Bill Belichick. It was the greatness of Brady. Whereas if he just leaves, Ray, he leaves as like probably the best coach ever. Mm-hmm. If he goes to a team like Atlanta and let's say they make the playoffs, well, he's still just the best coach ever. It's like, maybe he feels he needs to prove he's the best coach ever. Maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot out there which stuns me, where people kind of seem to think Tom Brady made Bill Belichick, and it's wild. It's just wild that they don't understand the history of who he is, what he did before he was with the Patriots. They give Bill Belichick 0 credit for developing Tom Brady, giving Tom Brady the opportunity. When this, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, we'll get the NFL films and stuff when, Bill Belichick passes away and all that, and everyone will say he's the greatest coach of all time. It's going to happen. So realize it now, folks. Realize, who we're talking about here. I would love to see him go to a place and get an opportunity. We talked about the Falcons, on the surface. That seems like a good place for him to go if he wants to keep coaching.
Well, and I understand the shorthand, Ray, because if I asked anybody right now, anybody listening, who built Facebook? And also Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. Who built Microsoft? Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. It's this single individual, and like we don't understand. There's a lot more going on than just Bill Gates making a decision. And oh my God, they're the most powerful. And like the Steve Jobs saying, I get it, brilliance and all that. But there's a lot of other people. Same with a football team. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much going on. It's not a Belichick or Brady. Whose side do you got? It's Belichick, it's Brady, it's the assistant GM, and it's shorthand. It's a better story to say, Bill Belichick doesn't matter and Tom Brady does. But understand there's always more than just the guy at the top. I would say, like, this show. It's not just the Kyle Elfrink show. Okay? It isn't. There's other people involved. I know people want to say that, but it's not. There's other people involved, including our next guest who's joining us to talk some NBA. Does it every Tuesday. He is joining us. We're waiting to see if he's got sleeves or not, because I'm guessing it's cold where he's at. Let's bring him in. Justin Fensterman is with us. Sleeved Justin Fensterman. It must be damn cold in your neck of the woods, huh? Oh, microphone, Justin. Oh, hit that microphone.
All right, there we go. Radio, internet streaming 101.
For once, if his microphone was off.
You know what? I actually ended a streak because ever since we've gotten into this internet sports streaming world, that has never happened to me before today. And I was so glad that on all of the shows, it happened with the two guys that will probably never invite me on again. But thanks for having me.
Not true.
And yes, by the way, you guys know this, announced it last week on your show. Arms are under construction until summertime. So
under construction.
If you still have me on in June, I will unveil my work.
Rome was not built in a day, Justin. So take your time. We don't expect you to show up, yoked out, as they say.
Looking like Phil Backert, right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, basketball. I guess I want to lead with a name probably most of our audience has never heard of, which I don't even know if I probably hadn't until 2-3 days ago. GG Jackson is a rookie in Memphis. And I guess he's the hot pickup. Memphis has got issues. Ja Morant is the big one. And I guess GG Jackson has become the thing for the Grizzlies. What's going on here?
There's a lot. You guys remember Y2K from the year 2000, right? What was supposed to happen with Y2K? Well, it never happened for the most part.
Yeah.
What's going on in Memphis right now is how I imagine Y2K would have gone. Everything's breaking down. Everyone's breaking down from this team. Desmond Bane is now going to miss a month and change with this. And it's just – you're already missing all of your guards. No more Ja Morant. Marcus Smart is hurt. Desmond Bane's hurt. Rose is hurt. I mean, when it comes to GG Jackson, Kyle, here's the thing with him. I mean, 6'9" forward who played at South Carolina. He wasn't even that good of a shooter in college. This guy was a 32% shooter from downtown. Not so great, around 30% in general, but he's been hitting his threes. And is he going to hit 5 threes a game? Because it's not really the toughness that I'm impressed with. It's that he's been able to hit his 3-pointers. But the rebounding we did see in his 1 year at South Carolina last year. So we've seen the rebounding in the blocks as well. And look, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Santi Aldama can use a little bit of help on the wing so they can play more in the post. So we'll have to see if they keep giving this guy some serious run.
Justin, who are you wearing there, by the way? I know it's a Golden State jersey.
It is, Ray. It's Stephen Curry.
Okay.
It is.
My nephew will love that.
I don't even know why. I don't know how you can love this team right now. They're not even fun to watch anymore, Ray.
Justin, I didn't ask you a question about the Warriors.
Okay,
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Washington Wizards, Detroit Pistons, trades, 4 players involved. Talk us through the trade. Talk us through the implications in the fantasy space as well.
Let me say, isn't this trading manure for manure from these two teams?
Yeah, it's like you're trading your utility bigs and stuff like that. It's like you just wanted to make a trade to make a trade. But what this was for Detroit was this was a way to shed some salary because Marvin Bagley, surprisingly, you don't think the guy is worth $5, let alone $12.5 million over the next year. So they moved him to Washington. And what Washington did was they attached a couple of second-round draft picks because, as we talked about, draft picks are king when it comes to capital these days. So actually, guys, here's the interesting thing about this trade. Daniel Gafford just got hurt, might be in concussion protocol now. So Bagley could be walking into some serious minutes here. We didn't see him in the Wizards' last game because he had just been traded. But if they give him the green light, he could be easily looking at about 30 minutes or so right off the bat because they also traded the Wizards Mike Muscala, Bucknell's finest from the Patriot League right there where American University is, of course. Mike Muscala, now a member of the Detroit Pistons as well. So they don't really have much behind Daniel Gafford. So Marvin Bagley is going to be walking into some relevancy for about the first few weeks here. And we'll see if they like him a lot and they just divide up their minutes. This team isn't going anywhere. Might as well see what you have in Bagley if you're going to have him for at least the next, I guess, half a season on both sides, because by next year at the trade deadline, he's going to be an expiring contract, thus becoming an asset.
Former Warrior great Rick Barry, the underhand free throw. Your thoughts, Justin?
I actually really did like Rick Barry. I like the way they played. But that Warriors team, you could tell me if I'm wrong, they weren't supposed to win the title back then. It was one of the surprising championships. Back then, it was really, you're looking at the Suns and the Boston Celtics that were kind of dominating the field. The Lakers were retooling. The Bucks were retooling back then. But, man, that Warriors team is kind of one of those random teams like the 04 Pistons to win a title.
Well, I will say in sports, and this is like a good contest. If you're ever at a bar with friends and you think, like, what's your favorite, like, sports term? I would give a vote to the granny shot. I think that's a funny name for what it is, the granny shot. Because you can see every granny, that's how they'd shoot a free throw. So I give that my
guys.
vote.
Let me ask you guys. Let me throw it back to you. With the amount of big men in the league that shoot under 60%, under 50%, it's kind of easy to learn how your momentum works. I don't know why.
Nobody's going back to the granny.
But I don't know why. If they're shooting 40% from the line and they're getting fouled every other play and it's not working out, why not? It's not that hard to learn your momentum and to be able to get a consistent motion underhand. People just don't want to think they are looking stupid doing it.
Yeah, well, they do look stupid. It's not thinking they look stupid.
But if they can shoot 70 to 75% from the line, that's smart then, isn't it?
I got news for you. They're not going to figure out how to make a granny shot if they can't make a free throw shot. That's not going to change their no. They're just no good at it. They're 7'2" and there's too much stuff going on.
But their hands are the whole ball, and their elbows are popping out. And the granny, I mean, it's like softball. You throw underhand softball. People can pitch softball for 35 years, never have an arm problem. Your arm is not built to do up things. It's built to do under things. That's the construction of the shoulder. Come on, Kyle.
It's all about the momentum. That's really what it comes down to with the granny shot. And I don't know in the age where if you make fun of someone, you're canceled. Why don't they just try it out and see if it improves their percentage?
I want to see somebody shoot 3-pointers granny style. Like when they catch it, they get away with that.
Can you imagine taking 2 steps and then doing that?
Okay, Warriors. Draymond Green's back. Does anybody care? I mean, like fantasy-wise, is Draymond Green worth a damn anymore?
Yes, he is. He actually is, because this team is so pathetic. Ray, I don't know how you watch this Warriors team or root for them at this point. They don't do anything right. They're not even fun to watch anymore. They're one of the most frustrating teams in fantasy. They don't commit to a big man, which is why Draymond Green coming back actually does make him very appealing when it comes to fantasy, and also likely from a DFS standpoint for about maybe 2 or 3 games, and then all of a sudden these sites will just price him up. They're going to have to start him again. He's going to start. They'd be stupid not to start him. They don't have anybody else that can commit to offense and defense consistently. That's a big man. They don't like Kevon Looney. Saric can help stretch the floor a little bit. Kuminga is really pissed off at the team right now. They're at this point screwed. They need this guy at this point if they're going to even sniff the play-in tournament.
Let's stay out west and in California. What the hell's going on with the Lakers, Justin? Let's bash the Warriors. Might as well bash the Lakers too.
Yeah, let's do that, Ray, because there's another team that they don't play any defense. And it's so weird for a guy. It's one thing when Anthony Davis is not playing, and this has been frustrating for DFS because I'm drawing a lot of these Lakers slates, and every freaking slate, both Davis and LeBron are questionable. And we don't hear any of the news until the slate has got locked for 2 hours, and it's annoying having to build around the Lakers and having to build contingencies. But here's the thing with Anthony Davis, and we've been able to escape with a few point props for centers. He doesn't stop anyone from scoring. I don't know why. He's wingspan-wise one of the most dominant big men, and everyone's able to score on him, even the undersized centers. I really don't know why. So if he's not stopping anyone, no one at the post is stopping anybody. And the team also plays quickly, so the slower teams have pace advantages as well. They've had to retool their point guard because D'Angelo Russell is a complete joke and he's allergic to defense. So what you do is you put LeBron at point. Okay, that's great. But LeBron's getting older and it's not getting easier, and little injuries are starting to essentially stay with him even if he plays. That's the problem, guys. You're built around 2 guys that are banged up, one of them old as hell, and you don't really have many future pieces. Austin Reeves has been a non-factor for the most part this year. So they've got a lot of problems, but it all starts with defense, and they're not going to be able to contend against the current contenders in the West.
I'm going to make sure to text LeBron here and tell him that you called him older than hell. Was that the phrase? Is that it?
And it's no disrespect to him, but you need somebody that could be a great 2-way player to play with him now. You need someone.
Are you younger than LeBron? You are, aren't you?
What's that?
You're younger than LeBron, aren't you?
Yes, by 2 years. Oh. He graduated in 2003. I graduated in 2005 from high school.
10-day contract, Justin. 10-day
right.
Contract.
Justin immediately got a job in radio out of high school, I bet. Just like LeBron skipped college, go to the NBA. He was so talented. That was the same for you, Justin. They wanted you to get into media immediately out of high school.
You know what, man? Honestly, if I would have realized that you could potentially get a job in media without graduating in high school, I would have gotten a job when I was 15 in radio.
You didn't understand you need no credentials. You don't need
Kyle, the only people that were on like CBS for kids and all that were the people that's parents put them in the Mr. Cheez-It broadcaster teen of the year, and I was never put in those contests.
Yeah.
But if I think about it now, I would have probably asked my parents to walk me door to door, station to station, and be like, "Hey, look, this guy's crazy. He's got energy. Let him do something for you."
And Marv Albert would have said, "You bet. Come on down, kid.
Oh, come on, Kyle. You got to set me up." He would have said, "Yes, and
Yes, bring him in. Yes." Okay, Lakers down, Warriors down, Jazz up. Utah Jazz. I looked at it. 12-2. I think it is right for Utah. Am I right here? 12-2 since before Christmas. What's going right for Utah? Fantasy wise, who are we excited about?
Oh man, my new favorite player to bet on when it comes to the Elite Mafia in the betting Discord for NBA, Lauri Markkanen. We hit another nice prop with him. His offense is really coming alive. He's been excellent when it comes to that. And also their guards have been producing too. With Utah, they weren't fully healthy for a while. Now we're seeing exactly what they have in their arsenal, and they have been excellent. Everyone from Jordan Clarkson, even coming off the bench, Colin Sexton has been solid too. So they actually have a few strong players, and they have some size, which they don't need them to do a lot. Like the Lakers need Anthony Davis to do so much. They don't need guys like Kelly Olynyk and Walker Kessler to do too much except plug the middle. And that's all that they need to do. So they have a lot more depth than you think. And guys, this team doesn't lose at home. They're 15-5 at home. And it's really good to see because they're such a terrible road team, but they just don't lose at home. And when I was looking at their matchup last night, and the Pacers lost a few players. They didn't have others coming in. They don't have Halliburton, but still seeing Utah be able to run at a nice pace like that because they've moved up and up the pace chart, that's going to be very beneficial when they face any of the 9 teams in front of them. Speedy pace, more possessions, higher ceiling for our DFS production.
Just another team having success is the Cavaliers, LeBron's former team. Darius, Garland, Evan Mobley are continuing to miss time. What is working for this team? What is allowing them to continue to be one of the better teams in basketball recently?
So they've been able to rely on Jared Allen more, and Jared Allen is not known to be a good defender, but he is doing one thing right. On the ball, he's been awful. And it's funny, I feel like sometimes I could be an assistant coach to one of these teams because I see a consistent problem with him, and it's footwork. And you just need this guy to just plant his feet more and not be so quick to try to jump into the opposition. But he's been playing well. You're seeing it in the stats. Donovan Mitchell really running the point on this team has been massive. It's been key. And he's also been a pretty good defender as well, just like Darius Garland was. So he's been helpful. And then they've gotten some sparing help from Karis LeVert, who we saw once again last night be able to produce. So this team has just enough depth to make up for what they don't have up front. A lot of their front court guys, more better reality players than fantasy studs, but Jared Allen's been able to do everything in the middle. Donovan Mitchell running point has been a genius move, and they've been getting just enough from everyone else. It's almost like they've got to name a utility player that decides to shoot well rather than everybody on the bench not shooting well, and their defense has still been good, and that's been keeping them above water.
Justin Fensterman is with us every Tuesday here on Fantasy Sports Daily. It's a light slate, by the way, tonight. Just 3 games, but they are 3 enticing matchups. Nuggets at the Sixers, Kings at the Suns, and Thunder at the Clippers. I looked at, if you combined all 6 of those teams, they are combined, I think, 63 games over 500. So good action nonetheless. Obviously, more of a DFS tournament slate as well on the 3-game slate. Tomorrow, we should remind people a lot more NBA action. And Justin, watch along Wednesday coming people's way tomorrow, right?
That's right. Watch along Wednesday, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Took a 1-week sabbatical, but we're back in action. We got a bunch of games, 10 games on tomorrow night's slate. And we're going to be talking about how to beat these teams. We're going to be talking about how to take advantage of them when facing them for DFS and matching up. And from the team in general, having a lot of great conversation regarding tonight, Kyle. And we, with these slates, we don't have anything crazy written up when it's 3 games or fewer. However, we'll be doing all of our lineup building in the Discord chat. It'll be me and Armando Marsal from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. when the slate locks. And I'll tell you this, it's going to be a doozy because the Denver Nuggets have 5 starters, right? Like every team does. all 5 of them are questionable to play. It could be a load management day, Ray. You like load
My
management,
favorite.
Ray?
Yeah.
Ray, how many load management days do you get? None.
I get none, just like Michael Jordan, who played all 82 games when he was 39 years old.
Listen, man, I see that baseball draft guy, no load management for Ray Flowers, I'll tell you that much.
Ray could whip all these NBA guys into shape.
Damn
Get
right.
out there, play the game.
Granny style.
Yeah, but we could be having problems because we don't know at this point who's going to be playing for Denver against Philly. So good luck.
I think somebody called me from the Denver area code. Well, actually, it was Philadelphia because they're there tonight. So maybe they're getting a hold of me for tonight. And I will go to the free throw line and shoot a granny shot.
Do it, man. If you can shoot 75%, then why not? You'll get.
I actually like my odds better normal. You guys think you would shoot better granny style over normal?
I do. I honestly do.
Really?
Yeah.
Right?
I tried. I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
But if I practice as much underhand as overhand, I think that the physics of it makes sense. I think that, yeah, you'd make more money. You'd win more games. Yeah, you get made fun of. Who cares if you're making more money and winning more games?
Exactly. There's a reason why it existed at one point, because Rick Barry realized he can't shoot them overhand, so he was smart.
Well, you might get a sponsorship with like Depend diapers too if you became really good at it and famous. They'd be like,
you guys got like a sleep number bed like 5-6 years ago. I remember that.
I'm still on it. Right?
Wow.
You still use your sleep number?
I love my sleep number. Yeah, still got it. Rocking it.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you had started out of high school, Justin, you too would have a sleep number.
I know. I was so jealous of you guys when I was working with you, and you were like, "Oh, I got a free bed. I like setting number 15."
65, Justin.
Yeah, I'm sitting there with the bed folded up, my legs in the air. It's great. It's awesome. Justin, we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Thanks, guys, for having me again.
You heard Justin mention the baseball draft guide. As noted, a few minutes every day, we'll kind of mention an article, maybe a new one, maybe one that's been posted today, Ray. And again, people can subscribe. You see the information, FSD 20, get a $50 package for $40, get the whole season of season-long baseball. Ray, the history of MLB rookie production. Everybody loves their rookies, do they not? But unfortunately, not all rookies are created equal. And I guess you got an article in the draft guide that digs into that assumption.
Yeah, we do. And today's actually rookie day. Right now, I think 5 of the 6 rookie articles are posted. Rob Povia will have his dynasty article out a little bit later today. Looking back at 2023, how did the top 50 perform? Who are the top 50 this year? Scouting reports for all the rookies this year, for the hitters and for the pitchers. And then this article talking about the history of the rookie production. And, I think it's every year people think they're going to win by drafting the hot youngster. Sometimes it works. Corbin Carroll last year was magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look at the history of this, if we look at the history of the guys that we expect to be superstars as youngsters, we're not good at predicting this. And I don't just mean, us in the fantasy space. I mean, everyone. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And I think one of them is right listed at the bottom of that little video screenshot we've got going there. Players develop differently. There's not a linear pace to this. Byron Buxton was the number 1 prospect in baseball for multiple years, according to everyone. And it took him years to find his footing. And injuries obviously have buried him too. But you look back at history, Jerkson Profar was the number 1 prospect at one point, and it's like there's a whole litany. And I've got the listing in the article where we go through each year over the last decade and say, who are the top 20 guys? How did they do? Were they a hit? Were they a miss? Were they a pass? And the data is pretty clear that, again, guys have success as rookies, but most of the time, a good deal of the time, when those guys have success in their first season, it's not the guys we're talking about in January, February, and March.
I have, and again, maybe you got the numbers, but I feel like, Ray, rookie pitchers are all over the place. And it's a big leap from AAA to the majors. And so many of these, none of them, I would say, are turned loose. Like they have no consistency for innings or, starting every 5 days. I will say, on the other hand, I feel like stud rookie hitters, guys that have been promoted as, a top 5 prospect in baseball, they've been pretty damn good. Not all of them have been hits, but you bring up Carroll, Bobby Witt was one of those guys. And as I look at this posting you have, the image of the, kind of your bullet point package, number 3 at the bottom, the rookie needs to have a spot in the major leagues. That is something I think a lot of people overlook. And a lot of times, like Bobby Witt's the example I like to use. Kansas City's awful. Kansas City has nowhere to turn if Bobby Witt fails. They're going to just use him. And if you look at his rookie year, Ray, he didn't hit. He came out and was hitting 200 strikeouts and everything. They just had to keep sending him out there. They should have. What else do they got? They got to play Bobby Witt. And when it was all said and done, because of plate appearances, games played, the guy totaled very good numbers. Mm-hmm. He figured it out. He battled through the strains and the challenges. Last year, Ray, more of the same. I mean, so like these rookies, it's one thing to say, oh, they're going to get a shot or a call up. Mm-hmm. But you got to make sure these guys that even if they struggle, will they still have a spot? With contending teams, they usually don't. Contending teams will go in another direction. But with lousy teams, and there's like 7 or 8 of them a year, Ray, lousy teams, if a rookie gets called up, they usually are going to play them and just let them fail. And that playing time will eventually add up to maybe some fantasy hits.
Yeah, and that's mentioned in the article too, that's one of the biggest issues we deal with, obviously. Even if the player is ready, right? What's their opportunity? Are they called up because the team thinks they're ready and they're going to play the rest of the way? Are they called up? They get 3 weeks. If they struggle, they send them back down. Are they called up because there's an injury and there's no possible chance of them, unless they hit 500 or throw 2 shutouts in a row, sticking around because they're just going to replace them with the guy that was hurt originally? Or do they have the opportunity to gain playing time? Are they with a team, to your point, that has nothing? They don't have anything to block this player. Let's give this guy the chance. Are teams that are in that scenario going to call the player up anyway? Or are they going to slow play it thinking we have no chance to win this year? We don't think we're going to win next year. We're not starting this guy's service clock this year. So we're going to wait until August to call him up versus call him up now, even though we don't have anyone better. So it's all of these moving pieces that are beyond the talent level of the actual player and the preparedness of the player that oftentimes determine what their value is in their first season.
Yeah, I look, and we'll leave here after this, but I look at this year's slate of top rookies. Jackson Holiday, Ray, is considered can't miss.
Yep.
And like I said, most of these guys who've been number 1 have hit. They've done well. Maybe it hasn't been perfect, but they've done well. But let's say Jackson Holiday gets off to hitting 190 after a month and a half. Mm-hmm. Baltimore's expected to be a contender. They have a lot of other guys they can turn to. And Jackson Holiday, he's 20. So it's not a given, but that would be one. Jackson Chourio with Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a case where maybe they just leave him out there. The assumption is Milwaukee's more in a rebuild. The assumption is Milwaukee's not aiming for 90 wins this year. And then somebody like James Wood with Washington, Ray, mm-hmm. the Nationals rebuild. Mm-hmm. Hey, like if James Wood gets called up or makes this team, my assumption, Ray, is outside of an injury, he's just playing every damn day. Like, what do you got to lose? Just play James Wood because it's time to see. And that's, Washington's in a totally different spot from a team like Baltimore or the Yankees, a team like, Houston or the LA Dodgers. I mean, those are teams that if guys fail, they move on. They send them back to the minors. They put them on the bench, whatever. But these lousy teams, they'll play them. And James Wood's a perfect example. He should play, Ray, 120 games, I think, this year. And that's assuming he doesn't break with the club. If he breaks with the club, Ray, you could be looking at 135, 140 games for James Wood.
Well, I think it's fascinating. A name that you brought up beyond Woods is Jackson Chourio, because don't forget, he signed an 8-year, $82 million contract.
Yeah, he's up. He's up
on day one. If he's ready on day one, and he'll be 20 in March. If he doesn't, strike out 42% of the time and bat 110 in the preseason, like, how does he not make the team? You're paying him anyway. Might as well, So that's a very unique scenario for him, and which I think helps clarify things a lot. Which is why if you're in the I'm drafting a youngster pool, there's obviously risk with a 19-year-old, and how's he going to perform and all that. But I mean, his playing time situation appears to be as good as any of these other players in baseball because he's got the contract. It'll be fascinating to see how it plays out. We'll obviously cover all of this over at fantasyguru.com. We'll adjust the rankings as information comes in. But yeah, I thought it was this year, as I do every year, really important to get the rookie information out early, because I know people are doing drafts already and all that kind of stuff, and just make sure you read the history of MLB rookie production before, especially if you're in a redraft league. Keeper dynasties are different. Yeah. But if you're in a redraft league, make sure you read that and really think about what you want to do on draft day. Because I think one of the mistakes people make is they grab all these guys, they walk away from the draft feeling great, and then 2 months into the season, their team is in the toilet because 4 of the 6 guys they drafted aren't even playing in the big leagues, and the other 2 are struggling.
Well, and it's also like just counting on those guys. We're all going to draft rookies. It's a 25, 30 round draft. You're going to have a rookie or 2 on there. Just make sure you have a backup if that rookie fails. You can't draft Paul Skeens and say, okay, I'm set at pitching. You need other guys to get you through that. So it's also backloading those rookie selections. Today is rookie day, as Ray termed it. The draft guide is live. Do check it out, fantasyguru.com. You can get it for $40 with FSD20 as your checkout promo code. We'll obviously have a lot more each and every day. We'll kind of touch on a few topics, maybe 1 or 2, see what's going on in the news. We're about a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and we here at Fantasy Guru, it's time for baseball. Time to get you set for 2024. So take advantage of the opportunity and get locked and loaded for the season. Ray will be back tomorrow. More football. More baseball. We want to talk running backs, I know, kind of wrap up that position this week. So we'll get rolling at 11 tomorrow, okay?
Looking forward to it, Kyle.
Ray there, Kyle here, you on the other side. Thank you so much for joining us. We will check in on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here, Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.